Hello there. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to edit black and white photos in a little bit different way than normal. It's going to be fast, easy, and we're also going to be taking a look at how to do that in a low-key and high-key style of editing. And before we jump into editing these types of photos, again, I want to mention it won't be worth your time to take every single photo you have and change it into black and white. Of course you can, but I recommend not doing that. A good reason to change something into black and white is to say, for example, if you have some interesting contrast there, maybe you have way too much color and your subject isn't really popping out. It's just kind of there's just too much things going on. It's just way too busy. And then other things like interesting shadows, maybe even a more minimalistic type of photo is and are good reasons to play around with the black and white style of photography. So let's jump in and take a look at how we can approach the topic today. Okay, so I got a photo I'm going to edit that we already have open here in the develop module. And of course, you can convert more colorful photos to black and white if you want to emphasize, say, contours that just don't stand out as much when they're in their typical color format. All right, so I'm going to edit these blossoms of a young apple tree. And although it has all these nice, pretty pink flowers, you can see that the edges are browning of the petals and they're starting to fade. So black and white will actually completely eliminate the wilting blooms and will just emphasize the actual structure and contour of the petals themselves. And the quickest way to do that and the quickest way to create a black and white is, of course, to click color here and then choose grayscale. And instead of automatic, let's choose the manual channel mixing for method and then fine tune each part of the photo separately. Notice here you can see which part of the photo changes for each color channel. And don't be afraid to move the sliders, back and forth and more than once just to see what they do and find just that right contrast for your photo. All right, once I'm done adjusting these color channels, I'm going to move to exposure. And again, don't be afraid to experiment and play around with the sliders. Let's slightly increase the exposure as well as contrast. Let's increase the white points, slightly lower the black point. And we'll also bump up lights and lower our shadows. And then let's also increase the white point and lower the black point like this. Next, let's add some clarity. Notice that I've only adjusted each slider just a little bit. We want noticeable contrast, but we don't want to overdo things and end up with an overexposed or underexposed image. And any of these other sliders, if you overdo it, you're just going to end up with something that doesn't look natural. Okay. Now I want to see what my black and white version looked like before we did all of these exposure adjustments. And I'm going to unclick all the adjustments I made using this checkbox. So I don't really like that the edges of the photo are still light, and I want to bring out the flower into the middle a bit more. So I'll expand the effects menu, and all the way at the bottom, let's add some vignetting. So while we're still in the effects here, let's add some grain because it does look good on black and white and it kind of is a nostalgic throwback to the old film days. I hope many of you are still experimenting with film as well though. Don't take it for granted, but it adds this sort of interesting kind of like naturalistic touch to the photos, which digital sometimes can't capture. So to see what the original photo looked like before being converted to black and white, and before any edits took place, we can click on this icon here. You have to hold it though. Or you can hold your / key. That's just another quick way of doing it. And you have to hold it to see what that photo looked like before the edits. So I do like how it ended up turning out. So I'm ready to export now. And I'm going to choose the format. And I am done. Okay, now let's take a look at a slightly different type of editing called low-key editing. And it's characterized by an abundance of dark tones or high contrast between the highlights and the shadows. Low-key lighting is mainly used for portrait photography, where it's going to evoke sort of feelings of stoicism, or sort of the photos are going to have like a raw feeling to them. And it's perfect for portraits, let's say for men, or also older subjects, as it's just sort of colder and a more sort of masculine feel to it. So that's why it looks good with those subjects. And I'm still going to be in the develop module. So now I'm going to open a photo that we want to use, and again, select the grayscale and adjust the color channels. And I'm going to need to lower the red color channel, which lightens the skin tone, and I'll lower it to 0. The blue color channel, on the contrary, darkens red tones, so I'm going to actually increase it all the way to 100. And then let's use green to fine-tune the photo's contrast. In the exposure section here, I'm going to lower the white point as well as the black point, and slightly increase lights as well as clarity. And to add some drama, let's again add some film grain to it, but this time let's choose the fine grain. And I'm ready to export. Choose the format, and we're done. Now, the last editing method we're going to go through in this video is called the high-key editing. And high-key mainly contains light tones. And high-key has a lot less contrast between the highlights and shadows, and it works well, for example, for maternity photos, baby photos, and boudoir photography, where you want to emphasize the subject's delicateness. So you could say that the high-key is sort of a yin to the yang of the low-key. It's just a contrast and the complete opposite to that. So I have a perfect photo ready for us right here to try out some of that high-key editing. I have a female nude where there is a little contrast between the highlights and the shadows. And just like with the previous editing, I'll check the grayscale, select manual channel mixing, and here I want to bring out the skin tone as much as possible. So I'm going to take the red channel and set it all the way to 100. And vice versa, I'll lower the blue channel here on the, compared to what we did before, all the way to 0. And since I want to reduce the overall contrast, we're also going to set the green channel to 0. And notice now the red tones are almost white, and also the shadows have been greatly softened. Okay, so I'm not going to do any further editing on this photo, but of course, if you need to brighten yours, or you feel that you just need to play with it a little bit more, feel free to do so and slide around with that exposure, with the exposure settings more until you get that spot that feels just right. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and it gave you some more tips and inspiration on other things that you might not have done before with your photography. Let us know what you think below. Give us a thumbs up. We also included a link below in the description that will take you to some more articles about high-key and low-key photography that could be of interest to you. Hit that subscription bell to get new videos when the new ones come out. Otherwise, until then, I hope you have a good one, and see you in the next video. Ciao.